Hey, sports fans, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Buckle Up, an ultra running conversation. This week I'm flying solo. Mandy is really busy with life and race directing and training for the Cocodona 250. So she was not able to jump in this week. But I really wanted to dive a bit into my current situation. I wanted to rewind it back to about 2 years ago, year and 8 months ago, at the Moab 240, which is October, so it's probably a little less than that. But none other. I went out there in October of 24 and attempted to finish my third Moab 240. And at mile 80, I called it a day and went home. I could not. I had so much heel pain and so much irritation and flare. It was red and irritated and just angry. If you know anything about Moab, the climbing hasn't really started just yet. And so with a flared Achilles tendon, with some tendonitis going on, I had to call it a day. And I came back and promised my wife I'd go get it checked out. So I did. I went and saw my local specialist here, and we took x-rays, we took MRIs. There was just a ton of bursitis in the heel and the calcaneus itself. So we treated that with cortisone shot, and we got signed up for round of PT with Brian Burkhart, who's been on the show as well in the past. I did my PT with some success, but not 100% success. I still needed to work on it and continued to after PT ended for most of 25, but I did sign up for the Grand Slam of ultra running in 2025, and I DNF'd on the first initial race at Old Dominion 100 miler in Virginia, and the Shenandoah's there. I made it to mile 87. I ran out of time, and I was moving slowly. I wasn't in that great of shape, quite honestly. A couple things there. I was actually not in great shape, but I was also already projecting on the next set of races. I was already thinking about Vermont and Leadville and the final race, Wasatch, and I really wasn't that focused on Old Dominion. And that turned out to bite me in the butt. Part of the lead up to that training block to get me to Old Dominion was really a struggle because of the pain in my heel. Even though I was doing PT and I got some relief from the cortisone shot, the pain in my heel was just bad enough that I was able to run maybe 2 days on and 1 day off before I'd have to rest for a good 24 hours or greater before being able to run again. So sometimes I was having to rest the 24 to 48 hours before I was able to get a workout in again. And I was able to do two. I mixed in a little bit of cycling, but not much. But that was my training at the time. And it came back to bit me. Hindsight, it might have been a blessing because I might have struggled throughout the rest of the year to get the other three events done. So I backpedaled. I continued to do some training as much as I could. And I was able to literally limp through Leadville and get my 10th one done, which was featured in the documentary by Simon and Nora, Running with Simon, called Sobriety, The Path to 1,000 Miles, at the Leadville 100 story. That was my journey to 1,000 miles. I was able to get it done. It was pretty ugly. I was able to come in just about 20 minutes to spare in the golden hour. So I finished around 29:40, if I'm not mistaken. And so really narrow margins, my worst finish in all the 10 years that I've been running Leadville. Also, slower moving, lots of heel pain and all those things going on. I came back this year in 26, started running in December, and was really trying to do another big season. And the first one on the radar was what I thought was going to be an easier 100 miler at Jackpot Ultra in February, 2.6 mile loop around a park just outside of Las Vegas in Henderson, Nevada. And I was able to get about 68 miles there complete before walking irritated it and running irritated it. I changed the shoes to 5 different pairs of shoes in that 68 miles to no avail. I even tried them a second time, some of the shoes a second time. So I probably had 7 or 8 shoe changes and just could not get it done. And so at 2 a.m, I pulled the plug, decided it hurt bad enough that I was not going to finish the Jackpot Ultra, and I was going to come back and go back to the drawing board as the DNFs are starting to pile up. And it's apparent that it's all due to this Haglund's deformity on my heel. When we took x-rays back in November of 24 and MRIs, we came up with the diagnosis that I had a Haglund's deformity, a bump on the back of my right heel. It's pretty much a calcium buildup of bone, and it's irritated. It's directly corresponds with the alignment of the Achilles tendon, and that's what initiates the pain. It's uncomfortable sometimes to walk, it's uncomfortable sometimes to run, and sometimes it's not. And that's just kind of the way it goes. So after I went back, after jackpot in late February, the doc said that it had grown a fair amount through the current x-rays. And so I wasn't getting any more reprieve. We've exhausted all the options. And so we looked at surgery as an option. And they reassured me that he's done it before, and the process could be a really good one to go through and relieve this pressure so I could run like I want to. At the age of 51, I want to run for another 20 years. I want to run until I'm 71 or older. And I just enjoy running that much. And I'm willing to take the season off and make those changes. So initially I thought, okay, let's wait till September when my racing season's over. I had 3 more big races: Tahoe 200, Summit 200, and Leadville for the 11th time on the calendar already, paid for and accepted into. And I was pretty excited about the season coming up, but not with the pain that I've been dealing with. The other issue at jackpot is that I wasn't able to get the training in, and instead of being able to run 2 days and needing a day off, I was actually just running basically every other day because the pain was getting worse and more severe in the Achilles, in the heel. So I pulled the plug and decided, let's just do this sooner than later. Let's just move on. Let's do it. And the best case scenarios the doc gave me were he was going to be able to go in there, clean up the overgrowth, clean up around the anchor, and make it look nice and neat without detaching the Achilles, and put it all back together. And that was the best case scenario. And the worst case scenario was he's going to go in there and it had overtaken the anchor and needed more attention, to where he was going to have to clean off the calcaneus, as well as detach the Achilles, clean off the anchor, and reattach the anchor, which that process could have been a year to a year and a half in recovery and PT and all the things. Again, I'm not running the way I want to, and so both of those were viable options. Obviously, I was hoping for the best case scenario. We thought it might be the best case scenario based on x-rays and MRIs, but the doc said he really didn't know until he got in there and figured out what was going on. So I scheduled it for spring break, which is now roughly about a week and a half ago. So I was in there on March 27th for surgery on a Friday afternoon. I was intubated and went under, and when I came to, the doc gave me 4 words before he started his weekend, as I was the last surgery of the day on Friday, and he said, "Brian, best case scenario," and he walked right out. So if there were 4 words I wanted to hear, it was those 4 words. And I went back for a checkup 6 days later, and we undressed the wound and took a look at it. Everything looks great. The swelling's really coming down a ton. This incision is healing well. No sign of infection, no weird oozing or anything along those lines. And the pain's been pretty manageable. I took ibuprofen for about 48 hours and afterwards, and that was about it. And a lot of that 48 hours was also pain-free due to the nerve block placed behind my knee that lasted for about 28 hours. So I'm happy to say they also gave me a walking boot, and I'm walking assisted currently at this stage in the progress. I am roughly about 10 to 12 days out from surgery currently, and feeling pretty good. I'm walking around with my crutches. I got the air cast on. I'm able to take it off and take a shower and get the wound wet. I do have some movement in my toes. I'm getting a little bit of ankle movement in there, but not very much still. And I'm trying not to stress the Achilles in any way whatsoever until I go back again in a week or so and go back for another checkup and see what the prognosis is from there. So I'm really taking this as a stepped approach, but very hopeful with the prognosis that it was the best case scenario. It did not have to detach the Achilles. I should be healing very quickly. And that's my journey so far in this Haglund's deformity removal process. I'm hopeful to be running here mid to late summer, and I'm really going to take a long trajectory to it. Some of the races offered me a deferral and offered me to come back next year, but I really don't see myself running a 200 miler a year after surgery. And quite honestly, not even the 100 miler just yet. I envision a longer trajectory for myself in this process, and I want to come back and run Leadville maybe 2, 3, 4 years from now when I'm doing much better and everything's healed and with a lot of training and a lot of experience under my belt of other events. So I'm going to come back. I put a race on my calendar. We talk about it in the conversation here. I am coming back for the Turkey Trot late Thanksgiving. I am going to run this 5K. I might run walk it. Who knows where I'm at? But really, I do have a little dangly carrot out there of this Turkey Trot. Half joking, half serious, but it'll get me out there running and moving the way I'd like to. Once again, And I'll be back. I'm still here in the space. I'll be out volunteering. I'm still coaching all my athletes. It'll give me time to come out to other races and check out the scene and volunteer and crew for my athletes. So I'm really excited about a little bit of a different role for the immediate future, but otherwise I'll still be running and training. I'm excited to get back on the bicycle and pump up the tires and get some good spinning miles in for fitness and work through the process. That segues into today's guest, who's Ruairi Moynihan. He's an ultra runner, a pretty dang fast one too. When you hear it in this episode, he's got a pretty fast marathon time. He's running low 230s, 220s in marathon times, and he's looking for a trials time. He's a gifted athlete, and he went through the same process I went through a little less than 2 years ago. And it's just his experience with the same situation that I'm currently in. So 2 different perspectives and only 2 stories in the whole case. And there's lots of cases out there. Lots of information about Haglund's, quite honestly. Lots of great podcasts about people talking about their own journey. Again, this is only Ruairi and my journey and experience with dealing with Haglund's. And a lot of people suffer with it more than I actually had ever imagined. So I hope that somebody gets something out of this episode. And if not, it's really just an update of where I'm currently at and where Ruairi's at. And we're rooting for Ruairi this weekend. So go get it, Ruairi. And thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll catch up to you soon. Ruairi, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to talk to me today about where you're at and your journey to, this coming weekend. And we're going to get to the whole story. I also want to shout out to Jake Jackson. He connected me with you because I was looking for some information about my Achilles issue, my Haglund's deformity. And I know Jake has been dealing with it, and he didn't opt for surgery. And so I just kind of reached out to him. We are on, I think, Ultraspire together. One of the teams, I can't recall which one, even bigger than the trail as well. But I reached out to Jake just through Messenger, and he jumped in and chimed in. He said, "You need to talk to Ruairi. That's your guy." And that's how the connection happened. So shout out to Jake Jackson. I don't think he listens, but thanks, Jake.
Appreciate you, Jake. Yeah, he's the man.
And so
last time at Jackpot Ultras. So I didn't know.
Oh, you were at Jackpot as well?
Yes, I was at Jackpot Ultras. I was doing a training run. I was doing unofficial pacing because you're not allowed to pace for real in championship. It was the 100-mile championship, and Raj Paul was going for he was attempting the American record at the time and came up a little bit short. But I knew he would kind of be doing that, and it was a similar pace to what I needed for my 100K race that I'm doing coming up, the U.S. 100K champs. So,
wow, you're geez.
Running world, small world, so we all see each other, and we can talk about all these other people I've bumped into who have Haglund's as well. It's very common, and sometimes you don't even know you have it actually.
Very true, very true. Was that just recently though at Jackpot then?
Yeah.
Okay, so this year, just the 2026 edition. Yeah. So I was there as well, and I must have ran past you. I was in the slower loop, the 2-mile loop instead of the 1.2
for the 100-mile
loop. I did the 100-mile, or I tried to, and I went to 68, and that's kind of like the whole segue into me reaching out. I went back to my doctor. I got another evaluation. We took more X-rays. We did another MRI, and we came to the fact that I've thrown everything at this, and surgery is the way to go, or my next progressive step. So that's when I reached out to you, and Jake connected us. The whole story connected from there.
Hey,
yeah, and so I drove.
Which planned. I dropped at 40 miles, and a big thing for me, and we'll get into it, was I was testing out some shoes, and I hate to say it, I still had that dreaded heel pain come back. It was a lot better than it's been, but certain shoes, I was trying to wear a carbon plated shoe, and it crept in. So I was trying to go 50 miles that day, but I pulled out about 10 miles earlier. Anyway,
let's just get right into it then, because I feel like gear is like really specific to Achilles or to Haglund's deformity. Like I've been dealing with about 4 years, and I've been like seeking out shoes that the heel cup is like super pliable and soft, because then it kind of molds around my heel Haglund's deformity, as opposed to like some of the Hokas, like even the Tecton X will have like a more of a plastic cup in the heel.
Right.
And And that just irritates the heck out of me. You've had the same experience? Is that a thing?
Totally. Actually, let me grab the shoes. I got two. I forgot I should have kept them closer to me for an example. Yeah, the official heel, the official shoe lingo is the heel counter, right? So the heel counter is back here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it took a long time to realize, because most of the time you put on a shoe and you're judging it based on toe room, the cushioning. And then back here, if you notice, I'd say about 80% of the running shoes, it's a rock hard, it's almost like a cardboard backing. And then there's just a few shoes. Actually, speaking of shoes, this one I found will be best for my 100K road race that I'm doing. Very soft heel counter. It's still a little rigid down here, which I was starting to feel. It's hard to get a shoe where, because obviously then your foot slides around. So that's why most of the heel counters are hard. We can talk about why, carbon fiber shoes are even worse on the Achilles, but some other modifications you can make to trainers. I did this. You might have gotten this far. I had a buddy literally saw the shoe, electric saw, and just cut this opening so it wasn't pushing on the back.
So those listening to the show, Rory's holding up his shoe. He has basically cut a straight dead line through the heel cup in the back, straight down the back, and just kind of relieved the pressure of the heel cup itself. And so it's splayed open like a V.
Yes.
If you're not watching the show, and totally, I haven't gotten there yet, but actually this might be part of my recovery with my bike shoes, quite honestly. My cycling shoes. I have 2 pairs of cycling shoes, so I feel like I could afford to trash one a little bit and cut out the heel on my right foot.
Yeah, shout out to Nick Curry for that idea. I think it's on the blogs, and he's not the first one to come up with it, but he suggested it, and he had more of a perfect hole. I forget what kind of tool he used to cut that, but it depends on the shoe. And yeah, you might want to test it out on a shoe that has a few more miles, so you're not, ruining your favorite new pair. So, but it's helpful.
Yeah, and that helped. Yeah, I mean that got you through a couple more weeks of training, the training block or whatever it might be. Yeah.
It was nice enough. Like on trails, I was having a little bit more issues because of the instability. The heel would just rub on the back of the shoe a different way. So yeah, it might get me a little bit further before the pain, was really aggravating or potentially shut me down. And it could be good after surgery. Now that I'm, mostly recovered, I'd call it 95% recovered of where I want to be. It's still good to have that pair of shoes where, there's not pressure on the heel because, it's not, I guess, totally gone.
Yeah, Rory, let's just take it way back though. Let's back the story up real fast. We'll maybe run through your history with running. Gosh, where how you started, how you found the sport, how you wound up coming into ultras, and where you're at currently, and then maybe we could dive into like how Haglund's kind of came to be for you as an athlete.
Let's do it. Yeah, so I feel like I've done a few podcast rounds. I try to talk about it on my socials, Trail Gangstas. Sometimes I give my origin story. If you pick up on it, I'm a Yankees and Giants fan because I was born in New York City, although I'm definitely consider myself a Midwest boy because I moved at a super young age. I basically went to all of grade school in Fargo, North Dakota, but I love that East Coast connection. I have family there. I go back there a lot to both see friends, family, and then I like racing out there as well. So anyway, yeah, growing up in Fargo, North Dakota was really key part of my journey because it was a cool opportunity. I think I was lucky to be gifted at running. I always had the fastest time in the gym class mile and those types of things. I was able to stand out on my cross country team, whereas just across the border, Fargo's like right on the border of Minnesota. Like on my runs, you just run across the river in another state. That was very steep competition. That's a great running state. And, I might not have been a top scorer on my team. So it was kind of helpful for recruiting. And I decided to run at a D3 school in Minnesota, St. John's University. And yeah, I had incredible coaches along the way. We're both coaches. And I think that's really important to fostering a love of the sport and not getting burnt out. A lot of runners who I ran with in college or competed against, they're not running any longer. And I had this great coach, Tim Miles, got to shout him out. He's still actually coaching going on almost 40 years, I believe. But yeah, he just had this great balance of getting us to work hard, but backing off, and was very conservative with like racing too often. So I think that's what enabled me to like want to keep competing. Like when I got a teaching job in Phoenix, Arizona through Teach for America, I was still highly motivated to train. And, it was my first introduction to like high-level trail races. There were options to race and run trails in the Midwest, of course, but I got to see Air Vipa in the early years really coming up, and I was like, man, this is something. And the desert trails were a whole different challenge. So I started to test myself on those while I was also, like you, coaching. I was a high school cross country and track coach. So that was fun as well. Bringing the students, we had to arrange we were out in Goodyear, had to arrange for a bus to get the athletes to the trailhead, because it's not like some of the Phoenix schools where you're right on top of the trails and can get there. But I'd say that was also key in getting me into trail running. Although a lot of people may know I'm pretty fast at the marathon, so that's just a strength I have. I still feel better on like flat surfaces and roads, although I love the adventure of like really hard courses. So yeah, I hope that touches on most.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great summation. I appreciate it. And gosh, such similar paths to myself as well. So many relatable points in there. Let's talk about Haglund's and how that came to be when you first started noticing it, and kind of the trajectory of the Haglund's deformity itself.
Ooh, yeah, going way back, man. Let's see, I'd say it was probably pre-COVID. I got the first inkling of something. It could be connected to that trail running. Basically, I moved to Flagstaff to just take my running to the next level. I wanted to get an Olympic trials qualifier for the marathon, which I'm still going to try for one more time. I've missed it a couple cycles. I've run a 2:21. Been really close.
Gosh.
They keep lowering the time. Now it's 2:16, but it was like 2:19 and 2:18 at the times I was trying. And that's also when people were really hyped about, the super shoes, and those were in the early stages. So I was probably slamming a lot of workouts in those super shoes, which very high stack height, put a lot of force on the Achilles. There's a lot of studies coming out showing how wearing those quite often can cause issues. And as we talked about earlier, the heel counter can rub on it. So ultimately, if I take a look back, I'd say it maybe started around 2019. It was probably a combination of running a lot steeper hills and trails here in Flagstaff. I wasn't doing the strength training that I should have, and definitely not the calf raises. So you combine that with Achilles tendonitis, which is pretty common, plus the shoe rubbing on the Achilles tendonitis, and they can be paired. It can be one or the other, and then they make each other worse, right? And then eventually, I'd say maybe it was around 2020 or 21, I had grown this bump on the back of my heel, and I'd get done with a race or a workout, and I'd like throw the shoe off and be walking around, and I'd like jump into my slides, and people would be like, dude, what's wrong with the back of your heel? It's like this big bulge. And that really made me more aware of it, besides the fact it was hurting worse and worse. So ultimately it got to a point where, maybe 2023, I was getting really frustrated because I had, missed Olympic trials attempts. It was kind of aggravating me, in the final miles of a race, and I knew I could go faster. I was like, let me try some slower trail ultra running. It would arguably hurt even worse because the terrain was so different. And I think I would just be trying to walk around the kitchen, or even, sitting at my desk, and the heel would be throbbing because I'm walking on hardwood floors. And it just got to the point where I was like, I need to do something about this. I knew surgery was an option, and we can talk about, what you can do before surgery. But yeah, it's essentially like a bone bump or a bone spur on the back of the heel that irritates the Achilles. It can be around the Achilles insertion point. The bump is usually below that. And my understanding is due to the rubbing of like an uncomfortable footwear, it can calcify and it just becomes bigger, like a bone spur. And it's also paired with bursitis. You can have sometimes, I think they had to do that with me. There's like fluid sac around the heel, so it makes it look even bigger because it's inflamed. They can pop and drain that during the surgery. So there's just a lot of things that tie in with it. And it's quite unpleasant. And to bring in some names people might know who've struggled with it and gotten the surgery, two people I reached out to. I think I sent a DM to Rob Carr, if you know him, ultra running legend, winner of Leadville. He's had some Grand Canyon FKTs. So he had it and had kind of a slower recovery. I believe they had to detach his Achilles. And I'd say more famously would be Zach Miller. He had that procedure the year before he got second at UTMB.
Wow, I didn't know that about Zach, yeah.
So I was lucky enough to talk to him at Hard Rock one year. I think it was 2024 in the summer. Yeah, he just was the catalyst to like getting the surgery. He was like, talked about how he was able to bounce back so quickly and gave me some advice on picking a surgeon. Actually, part of his advice was, and we're kind of just jumping around, but I was thinking about going to the Steadman Clinic. As a runner, I'm like, I need to go to Vail. I want the surgeon who's worked on the best runners. They've worked on whatever. Galen Rupp is a road runner who's gotten it. They've worked on Galen Rupp, and I want to get that surgeon. And what he basically told me is a lot of those surgeons will do it for free or pro bono for a pro athlete, simply to say, oh, I did that surgery on Zach Miller or Galen Rupp. And then they kind of, get more clients that way. And what he told me is this procedure, for the most part, unless it's really unique, is straightforward, and there's nothing wrong with going with a local surgeon. It's going to be easier recovery-wise. It's going to be cheaper. It's usually not too fancy. There's one job they need to do. And my only advice for the surgeon would be that they have done it on runners. I think that's important, specifically a runner, not just someone who's an athlete, right? So that kind of changed how I picked where I was going to get it done. And I just decided to go with some of the options here in Flagstaff, which is obviously a big running hub. So
yeah, great. I actually had the same exact sentiment. I found Steadman, where I live, about 40 minutes away from Vail. I live 40 minutes west in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. And gosh, I was like, why not do the best? It's only 40 minutes away. Yeah, but money was a factor, availability, time frame. Steadman's pretty backed up. And my local podiatrist has experience doing it. He's done over 20 to 25 is what we talked about prior to going into surgery. And on athletes, I still, if you could imagine that trickle of the Vail sport scene exploding a little bit down valley towards Glenwood Springs. We do have a lot of athletes here in the valley. And so that was definitely a factor as far as cost and availability. I was able to get in just 3 weeks after, say, and I'm ready to do the surgery. And I'm just tired of being pained when I run. And it was actually carrying over, I'm not sure about you, but it was carrying over to my daily life. In my case was the doctor gave me the best case scenario, which was to get in there and clean up around the Achilles and leave it attached. And the worst case scenario or longer term program would be to detach the Achilles, clean up both the Achilles anchor and the calcaneus bone itself and reattach, which the process would have been a lot longer for rehab and recovery and returning to running. Which one did you wind up getting, or what was your
mine was
scenario?
So bad. I was sure they were going to have to detach it, and he thought it might be an option. And what's important, of course, is you got to get the x-rays and then MRI for more definition. And sometimes it's just a game time decision. And the surgeon, in their experience will decide in the moment, and that's where it can range from usually the surgery is going to be about under an hour, but it might go a little bit longer if they have to detach it and clean it up more. So I'd say mine was easier in a sense that I got very small incision points, and I forget what the tool is called. Yeah, basically he was just able to get in there around the Achilles, kind of push it to the side a little bit without causing too much strain or damage to it, and just shave off the bone. And, you showed me a nasty scar you had. I can send you one of the screenshots I have, the before and after. I don't know if you do visuals or want to put it on your little preview clip on socials, but that's very satisfying to see the bone shaved to where it should be, as it just looks kind of like a heel spur, essentially.
Yeah, it looks like the other foot, right? Essentially your bad foot now looks like the good foot, and they kind of match in their appearance. And I think I just wanted to back up a step too and kind of explain that it's an ongoing bone growth that happens. Because when I tell somebody it's a bone spur, they're like, well, haven't you had it all your life? And I'm like, no, it's not that type of bone spur, right?
So you're right. It's worse.
It's Yeah. Yeah. It was growing, and my MRIs and X-rays from November of 24 to just last month of February of 26, a little more or a little less than a year and a half. Bone spur, Haglund's deformity, grew by about 5 to 8%. So it was aggressively growing and getting bigger. And it was Therefore, I was training every other day because I'd have to take a full day off between workouts. Basically, every 48 hours, I was able to get a workout in. And then I was trying to figure out how to train around that. I was like, all right, do I just go really hard every workout and with 48 hours of recovery, maybe spin on the bike on the opposite days? But, it just became
I'm sure
problematic.
Gets to a point where it flares up and you kind of have to let it calm down for a while. And then as it gets worse, the amount of time it takes to calm down is so long, or it doesn't even happen. It gets frustrating. I don't know, maybe it could be beneficial for people who are wondering if they have it. Did start off as Achilles tendonitis for you, and then you looked into it more? How'd you know you had it? And then maybe we could just go over like what we both did before we're like, yeah, gotta get surgery.
Totally. That's a great segue. Yeah, I had Achilles pain. I didn't really know much about it. It was there maybe after a hard workout, after I put a lot of stress on it, maybe the shoes rubbing really aggressively on it and that heel cup and that you mentioned already. But it was manageable. I could probably go 4 or 5 days and then feel it again. And then it just started becoming more recurring and more pronounced. And then the obvious was like, I got like, it doesn't look like the other foot. There's an obvious deformity here. There's an obvious growth going on in the back of this heel that seems to be affected. And so I did go finally in to see the doctor after a DNF, as a matter of fact, after a pretty big DNF at Moab 240. I was at mile 80 and it was so flared up. I could not figure out how I was going to cover another 160 miles with it. Yeah. And I hadn't really done any of the climbing just yet. The climbing at Moab is late day. And of course, climbing, because of the angle of your foot and the extension of the Achilles, just really affects the Haglunds a lot more if you kind of get that visual. And so I finally went into the doctor. We took x-rays, we took MRIs, we did all the things. And yeah, I had a ton of bursitis inside of it. And so we aggressively attacked that. I did a cortisone shot in the heel. Yeah, I did cortisone to the affected area. And that relieved a little bit of the swelling inside of the calcaneus, because this was all inside of the cavity at some point. And so it's just a lot going on in there. Then I went to 2 rounds of PT with Brian Burkhart. He's been on the show for 2 different episodes about runners and how to strengthen your lower legs on this podcast, previous episodes. So I went to Brian and we worked. And I saw a little bit of reprieve, quite honestly, but not nearly 100%, and probably not even like down to like 30%. Is probably the best I got of where I want to be at. And so I was just kind of dealing with it. And go ahead. I did not. Yeah, there's a couple different methods. I heard of the PRP obviously being one. The other one was like injecting your own fat into your heel and trying that route. And that was from a plastic surgeon in Florida, a plastic surgeon friend in Florida that did that to himself or as a treatment option, which had a little bit of medical terminology in it for like when you Google it on the internet, yeah. But not a ton. So I wasn't super sold on that one either. I wasn't really trying to experiment, So that was my course. And yours was similar?
Let's see. I didn't do the cortisone injections. I tried some aggressive PT. I'll shout out Cameron Harder. He's with Ridge Athletics. He writes some PT plans for some top tier athletes, including like Tara Dower and stuff. So we hit it so hard. And what's really important is the Achilles can handle so much weight force, of course. Like you can't just now I use a kettlebell to warm up my heel before run, when I park at the trailhead or something and hit the trail. But ultimately, you need to get on like an Olympic squat rack and really get the weight on and, isolate that one leg. And it's so much weight. I'd have to do these sets that would just fatigue it. And it did help a lot. But it just got to the point I was like, I could just feel it literally just in my foot. I'm like, this isn't going away. I need the bump to be gone. And I had tried some acupuncture as well. It could alleviate the calf tightness, which, makes it feel a little bit better. Massage is going to help. And I think it can be beneficial just to talk to other people and what routes they may have taken. I referenced Nick Curry. He had done some PRP injections, and to me, it just seemed like you were kind of on the shelf for a while. The recovery could be quite a bit of time, up to 6 weeks before you're coming back to training. And I feel like it was already affecting my fitness because I couldn't train how I wanted to. So then I talked to other athletes in town who would, like I'd mentioned, Rob Carr, and then a track guy, Tyler Day. I'll mention him. If you're in the track or road scene, you might know him. He's run for NAZ Elite. He was a top runner for NAU when they got all their championships in a row. And he had gotten that twice. His I always just find it's like people who you know of or know in the running community, and there's something that just sticks out. And he just expressed he wished he had gotten it sooner. And then I remember jumping ahead to recovering from it. He's like, hey, just be patient. It'll probably take a year for it to feel normal. And if we want to talk about the recovery aspect, I remember just hearing that. And in my mind, I just had this, okay, at 1 year, I'll stress about, is this going as fast as I wanted? Because there's points where you recover really fast early on, and then you'll hit a plateau, and then you'll feel it it feels sort of like it did before again. Anyway, that's all to say I could have exhausted some other options, but I just decided 5 years of pain, I needed the surgery.
Yeah, it's amazing how long we'll deal with it, right? Before or we have to deal with it, literally. Rory, when was your surgery, just to kind of put a timestamp on it and where you're at currently, like
surgery
as far as like
was
how long ago
late
the surgery
September of 2024. So
okay, so just about a year and a half ago, a little more than a year and a half ago at this point. A
year and a half ago, and I'd say the big key race I did was the Haglund 100. So that's about a year and a month later, and that was kind of on my radar. And I can backtrack with my timeline, but yeah, I'm really proud of how that went. I think I was thinking it was even better off than I had thought. So I was expecting, honestly, I wanted to do even better, but I got fourth male, which is great.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah. And let's talk about that year and a month of recovery, like kind of maybe a little more dissection of the, so I'm 10 days out, so I don't have a reference point. I just know that I got a walking boot the other day finally, and now I'm down to one crutch instead of two. That's kind of where I'm at in my process. So I'd love to hear your process and just how it worked for you. And I know everyone's story is going to be a little bit different.
It's going to be different for every runner, and depending on, like we talked about, did they detach your Achilles or not? I do want to add a side point. I'm jealous of this runner, Renee. Am I mispronouncing her name? Medivere. I might be saying her last name incorrectly, but she's a badass now masters runner. She won like cross-country championships. She's here in Flagstaff. She had this sweet hookup where she was able to go to Sweden, and there's a surgeon there who knows how to remove the Haglund's deformity so subtly you can walk out of the surgery room. It's incredible. She was like walking back on the plane. Again, you have to have a more mild version. I'd say if you have a really bad Haglund's deformity, it could be different, but he's done it on some notable runners, and that's always the brag. You can walk out of there, you're running within a few weeks. And so if you have money and want to look into that option, you do have to pay out of pocket. I think she had some kind of connection where she got it at a better price too. That's something to look into. So her timeline, I was envious of, but it's also not always realistic, right? And she had to have it twice. So it can come back.
Sure.
That's where you want to make sure you stay on the calf strength and the recovery process. So just to jump right into it, a rough idea of what to expect. Obviously you come out of the surgery, you're kind of, I'd say, incapacitated for most of that day into the next day. They gave me some painkillers, which I opted not to take. I'd say the most unpleasant part of it was the nerve block. They jabbed that in your quad. I think I had done a trail race, not advisable, literally about 4 days prior, but it was a short one, so I thought I could get away with it. So my quads were sore from bombing downhill, and then they putting the needle in this. The guy was making fun of me. He's like, "Are you okay? I haven't even done anything." I'm like, "Yeah, I ran downhill," and I just felt like the biggest wimp. And it's really common for mothers to get that before they give birth. So that's crazy because I was waiting for the nerve block to come off, and I was ready for just this flood of pain, and the pain was more of a dull aching, and I just decided not to take any of the hardcore painkillers and went with the Aleve, I believe. So anyway, I'd say within a couple days, you're using the crutches. Someone dropped off a scooter who'd had some kind of foot surgery. That was really helpful for just getting around the kitchen. It was about 2 weeks until I could walk with the boot. Otherwise, I had the boot on mostly at all times. Believe I had to wear that sleeping, so that took a while to get used to. You have to kind of prop it up. So 2 weeks till you're just walking around with the boot. Hardest part was probably trying to figure out how to go to the restroom sometimes with that on, or taking a shower. I opted for the the boot outside the shower. Some people would like put a plastic bag on it. I don't know where you're at with that, but that part isn't too fun. Driving.
Yeah, definitely taking the boot off and taking the shower. I can't get in the tub. Initially, I actually got in the tub every other day,
Sure.
But I left my leg hanging out of the tub, or the affected foot, in a trash bag until I got the walking boot, and now I'm able to take the walking boot off. I don't know. It's one in six half dozen of the other, right? It's like if I take the shower with the boot, then I have to redress everything and put it all back together. The bandage, the ace bandage, the boot, everything back on. Or I could just hang the foot out of the
I
tub
thought that
like
was
I had
the
been
most
doing.
tedious
So
to
who knows?
have to get the boot or mess with the bandaging. Driving was a little bit of a hassle too. It was on my right foot. Some people, I guess, would take the boot off and drive. Like I was able to push with the toes, but I just didn't want to overdo it. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit I tried to drive with the boot. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was just like, let me just try going to the gas station down the street to get some snacks, and like headed out the driveway. My boot got kind of caught on the pedal, and I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to mess around and try. Like it started, car started to accelerate for a second until I unhooked the boot. So definitely don't try that. And let's see, I had the post-op. That's really big. You meet with a PA or something. Very exciting. They take the bandaging off for good, I believe, to see how it's recovering. That was 3 weeks out. I wasn't able to wear shoes for almost a month. I stuck with slides, but then being able to put a shoe on, because I'm a substitute teacher, so I wanted to go back to the classroom. I had to make some money. I think I was in there with my crutches, and sometimes the students treat you a little bit nicer if you look injured. It was cool to be back at school wearing like the shoes and like the shoes I wanted to. I think I had my first workout about a month later. Got a shout out Damian Heiser at base camp. He was my PT for afterwards. I just went for someone different, and mainly because it worked with my insurance. So that's something you need to look into, because it gets expensive. You need a lot more sessions. And he was incredible. I think 1 month out, we were doing very light calf raises. Cross training was about a month later. I just did some cycling at Planet Fitness. Not too exciting, but it was awesome. I think a rough timeline was for like a test run was going to be, believe it or not, about 2 months. I actually had some international travel planned. I work for a travel company where I lead some high school trips. So I was actually in Thailand for like 2+ weeks. If I was back in Flagstaff, I probably might have been able to do like a treadmill jog. But I remember he gave me the clear to try working up from just 30 seconds. I'd walk around for a tour, and that was fine. And then I would jog, I think maybe even in the slides, just for 30 seconds. And then a couple days later, I'd be like 40 seconds, 50. It was hilarious, but I even took some videos of me just jogging, and I was like, this is cool. And when I got back, I think 3 months out, just to give you a perspective, I did my first run of 15 minutes, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. I think I probably could have done that maybe a few weeks earlier, but I was traveling. So that was stressful not having that set PT, which they usually want you to be pretty rigid with for a few months out. But I did my best to find a gym to lift heavy, and got creative with the calf raises. That would be my biggest advice. Like you just can't let it get weaker or stiffen up. You got to get it some blood flow. My first race back was 6 months out. I was doing 6 months out. I was doing 25 to 30 miles. So again, this isn't going to be everyone's timeline.
A week? Yeah, a week though, you mean? For weekly
and
mileage?
Then with 9 months out, I was up to 50 plus miles. Again, I had it in the back of my mind. I'd been wanting to do, I'm on the Air Viper race team, and I'd wanted to do Haglund 100K. It just was some kind of goal that, got me motivated and excited. I will say that's when I referenced the advice from Tyler Day, that runner who said, I remember at nine months, I was like happy I hit 50 miles, but certain runs, it would still feel weaker. And it took the longest, to get back to doing like a sprint or stride. Anything up on my toes felt really awkward. And as a runner with a little bit more speed, that was frustrating, because I wasn't quite back to being able to do that till I'd say a year out, where I could maybe.
So you're running 50 miles a week, but it's probably like, low zone 3, zone 2, just that easy base building type of mileage, as opposed to like that speed work and that higher intensity.
I was able to do tempo, some steady state runs. I remember I'd keep trying the strides, and that was always the thing that felt the clunkiest. I just felt like I was learning how to run fast. And if I got up on the toes, it would just something would feel weird or I'd feel that ankle instability. So something to keep in mind, always better to start slow, gradually add in the workouts. Of course, having my PT, Damien, and then a coach as well gave me some extra guidance. So hopefully, yeah, you have a similar timeline or better. It's hard to say, right?
It's hard to say, but yeah, it's I appreciate the timeline. And 13 months later to run Javelina. I was actually at Javelina the last couple of years. I've been I've never raced it,
really?
and I don't actually want to. I have so much fun at the party, and I hang out with Zach Marion, and I do the GoPro cam on my helmet, and I mountain bike the first 1 or 2 laps, and then I wound up getting dressed up in the silliest costumes. One year I was the runner up in a costume contest, and then I wound up pacing one of my athletes. Oh, gosh, I had a rooster. It is kind of X-rated, so if you're listening, maybe skip this part for the kids if they're in the car. But I was a rooster. I was an inflatable rooster with the little legs on it, you know what I'm talking about? And I was dressed as a sheriff on the upper body. I had a little badge and I had a big sheriff hat and a fake mustache and the whole thing and little fake pistols and all those things. And I was the sheriff with the big cock as my... And I couldn't believe I took runner-up, though. I was so upset.
I figured there had to be one there. Yeah, you know, I might agree with you with Javelina. I did love it, but if I compare the years I've been there spectating and just being part of the party, that was almost more fun because sure enough, the heat got to me. I was pretty beat up afterwards. My foot held up really well. But yeah, it was hard to imagine having to go five loops out there for the 100-mile. I'm glad I did it.
Okay, so you were at, so did you do the 100-mile or the 100K?
And I've done, I'm pretty much out there most years because I'm coaching someone, crewing someone, and I've done the Jackass, the 1 loop, which is also very fun and underrated because you get to be part of it. You get to see out the runners out there race in your costume, and then you're back in time to have some drinks if you want those, and just enjoy seeing the leaders come in and stuff.
Yeah, I get out for a lap every time. I feel like as long as I got like 1 or 2 laps in the morning, which is fairly easy riding on a mountain bike, and then running that running that slow lap in the evening with one of my athletes. I feel like I got a full weekend of everything and all the fun and all the excitement and all the hype, and saw all the front runners and the back runners, you know, like it's a great, super fun experience. Rory, that was in late October, obviously right around Halloween. And so what did the rest of your look like since then? And let's talk a little bit about this coming weekend and what your goals are there.
Overall, I was really looking back at how I did. I think I was a little hard on myself. I always have even bigger goals. You know, I had a time standard I came up short on. I told myself I wanted to get podium. I was just outside of that. But I kind of realized how few workouts I had done leading up to it. It was mostly easy miles. So the fact I got through that distance, had minimal heel pain, was a big win. I still kind of, I don't know if I regret this, but I had a backup pair of shoes. And I was just so convinced the heel pain was going to start. I changed out of the shoe. And I just spent too much time on that transition. Kind of threw me off. It took forever to take the socks off, get the shoes on, and then I had some gear malfunction. So biggest thing I learned is I should have just trusted that the heel was going to hold up, but I don't blame myself for changing the shoe anyway. Recovery was decent from that because since I didn't have the fitness, I wasn't going maybe as fast as I could have. So I feel like I was able to bounce back quickly, and I was like, hey, I need to get some speed back. They have something called the Marathon Project down in Phoenix, which is pretty cool. Ben Rosario, the former NAZ elite coach, he did it once during COVID. It went really well. Some people ran some of the fastest times of COVID at that race. It's just, again, the theme seems to be loops, but it's just a 4-mile loop you keep doing until you complete a marathon. And a bunch of people got the Olympic trials qualifying time there. So I paced a 2:30 group, and we had the option to drop at 18 to 20 miles. And I stayed in there, and I think I ticked off like a 2:29. I just was like, let me get under 2:30 again. So that was a huge confidence booster to get the speed back that quickly. And yeah, as my spring race, I picked the US 100K road championships, which are in Madison, Wisconsin. And yeah, my goal is to make a world team. So to be able to complete.
And what do you need to be on the world team? What are the results that you need to get on the world team?
In the case of the 100K, it might be the case for the 100-mile races and stuff. If you if you're the top two, just for the males, let's say, they'll take two men and two women. Whoever those top two are get an automatic spot on the team because you did it at the U.S. Championships. And then they do it time and resume based. So typically they take 6 members on the team. So essentially you want to have like the top 6 fastest times before their whatever their cutoff is, which I think is late June. And in some cases, you know, if you had someone really fast who has a really good resume and maybe didn't get to run a race, hopefully there's no big pros, you know, who would decide to apply last second and just snatch a spot. But usually they'll do it based on time or that top two. So yeah, I guess if I'm top 5 at this race, I'm in a good spot to make the team. So we'll start there. I never like to be too specific with my goals because then it's all on social media and it's like, I know what it is in my head, but I don't know how you feel about those goals as a coach stating. I appreciate the people who just say what they're going to do, but I don't know. Maybe it's my Midwest upbringing. You just
there's a fine line. There's a gray area in there, right? Like, I mean, I think some athletes like really need that, like that mental self-talk to like say like, I'm going to PR today. I'm going to PR today. I'm going to PR today. I just had a high school kid do it this week. He's been running 218, 800 meter. He ran 214 last year. And so he's like stuck in this 218 rut and he's just getting frustrated. And he said, I read this chapter out of a book the night before, and it was like positive affirmations and believe in yourself. And he's at the starting line and he's mumbling something. I could see him from far away, but he gets to the line and he runs a 212, a PR for his 800. And so he comes to me and he's like, it's just pumped. And this is the other part I love about coaching, especially high school kids. But he comes flying up to me and just full of excitement after the race. And he's like, I did it, coach. And he's like, I told myself I could do it at the starting line. And so I think there's something to positive affirmations, but maybe the specifics of a goal and those things. There is a gray area, right? Like too much of one, maybe not, maybe a little more of another, you know, there's a fine line.
And it depends on the athlete. Sometimes if I'm coaching someone and they see all the splits and get too caught up on it, they come up short. And I've had other runners who, if I'm just like, hey, you're fit, you're going to do it, just see how the race plays out, they'll run better in that scenario. So anyway.
Totally. The other story I have real quick is that I used to race Ironman back in the day, and I was coaching myself. I didn't coach at the time. I was just self-coached, just reading and learning and growing. This was like 2005. So 2005, I went to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I raced the Ironman Coeur d'Alene. And I said, I put a timestamp on it. I said, I can do 12 hours. And I finished in 12 hours and 5 minutes. A couple years later, I come back to Tempe, down there by Phoenix, and I go to Ironman Arizona, 2008. And I say, gosh, I'm ready now. I could do 11:30, and I finish in 11:32, right? 11 hours, 32 minutes. And then I come back in 2009. And I say, I could go sub 11 hours, and I finish in 11 hours and 1 second, right? So I always use those reference points with my athletes, and I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this. But like, I put such a hard parameter on it that who knows if I was able to go faster or not, because I was watching the clock and everything led me to finish right within, a minute or two of a 12-hour race, essentially. And so I always say, like, let's have some ballparks, but also if you're feeling good, like, go with it. Like, it's okay to be a little quick, or even if you're behind, don't let it beat you up as well,
and
right?
That's why it can also be beneficial to, I'm sure you schedule for your athletes. I love the tune-up races. I love lower stakes races in between, because obviously that Ironman's an A race, Javelina is an A race, and if you need to practice it along the way to figure out what your style is. So maybe just tying it together. I'd say the best part of the comeback what's really important. There's some times where I was definitely discouraged. You stop getting those invites. You're not able to go to group runs. I'm literally just at home, some friends would come over and we'd hang out and kick it, but I was definitely not plugged in as much with the running community, just celebrating the little achievements, whether it's just the run walk and the comebacks. And then I would just get a very small race on the calendar, could even be a 5K. And maybe that's where you do your run walk. You have to definitely exercise self-control. And it got me, and that's something I'm not always good at, but I've gotten better at, where there's a lot of races now where I can show up and just be like, hey, I'm training this week. I don't care if the high schooler sprints ahead. I know I have my bigger plan, right? But with recovery, get some kind of fun race on the calendar where, if you're just run walking, so be it. and maybe it's just a different format you're not used to. And it'll just kind of, hopefully create that extra spark that gets you back to where you want to be faster.
Totally agree. And the joke right now is that I've been talking mad shit about our local 5K turkey trot. Like I'm going to come out and crush people, but I'm really just going for the finish. But I kind of like threw this, like, obviously late November, on the, in the radar, maybe not literally on the calendar, but in the radar is like, yeah, I want to come back and run this 5K, walk this 5K, whatever I'm able to do. I want to participate. I want to put on the bib again and join my community back up again. Yeah. And so that's definitely like on the radar, but I've been like talking a lot of smack about this 5K turkey trot that I'm going to come and crush.
Sometimes that's what it takes. One of my events actually might have been a beer mile. I think I snuck a beer mile in there. Kind of a good format because you're forced to stop. Was it great for the inflammation recovery now? But hey, no regrets. Sounds like we got to collaborate on an event sometime.
For sure. Hey, Rory, I appreciate you so much for coming on the show and taking some time out of your day. Safe travels. We'll be rooting for you this weekend at the 100K. I'm still wearing my boot and still holed up in my basement here. And so I have a lot of time. I'll be looking for some results and seeing if there's some sort of live feed I can watch. But where could our listeners follow you at? You mentioned your Instagram handle, but why don't you go ahead and see where, or share with us where the listeners can best follow you at?
LIL, Runner Boy, 3 I's. Yeah, Little Runner Boy. And then Trail Gangstas with an AZ. Trail Gangstas is more the memes, the funny stuff, and then the other one's personal. But yeah, if you're interested in coaching or have any other questions about the recovery process, you can DM either of those. Personal might be better, where I'll be sharing updates on the race too.
This episode will come out probably right after your race itself.
Yeah, you can.
So in the intro, I could probably give an update as to how you did as well.
Yeah, if you want to give me a follow on any of those accounts, hopefully maybe by the time this is out, we'll have the result, and hopefully I'm on my way to making a world team.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. I'd love to see you post up about your USA jersey. So that's exciting stuff. So we wish you the best of luck. Yeah, we wish you the best of luck, Rory, and thanks so much again for your time. We'll be in touch soon.